We now get to a set of very important HTML elements related to forms. I introduced you to forms earlier in the tutorial, but in this section we're going to get into the creation and formatting of forms in more detail. An HTML form is a section of a document containing normal content markup, like I have here, first name, last name, zip code, and then some buttons, plus special elements called controls. These are the check boxes, radio boxes, input fields that you can see here, as well as the interactive buttons there. And then labels on those controls. Users generally complete a form by modifying its controls. You do this by entering text, selecting menu items, checking check boxes or radio buttons, and so on. And then they'll submit the form to an agent for processing, normally to a web server, to a mail server, or some other type of script that will then handle the information contained in the form. Forms make your HTML pages interactive by making it possible for your users to give you feedback. Use forms on your HTML pages whenever you need to get information from your visitors. Here's a simple form that includes labels, text input boxes, radio buttons, and then push buttons for resetting the form or for submitting the information entered in the form. Here's the HTML that created this form. Here is my form tag. Action equals the address of where this form data will be sent, which method it will send it. Then I have my labels as well as input text fields, two radio buttons, and then here is the HTML for my submission button and my reset button. Let me next go over some of these form elements in more detail, but before I do, here's a summary of the various tags related to forms. We have the form tag, defines the form for user input. The input tags defines an input field. Text area defines a text area. This will be a multi-line text input control. Label defines a label to control. The field set defines a field set. Legend defines a caption for a field set. Select defines a selectable list for a drop-down box. Opt group defines an option group. Option defines an option in the drop-down box. And then the button defines a push button. Notice that here is the IS index has been deprecated. You'll use the input tag instead. Before you learn how to make a complete form and then learn how to format your forms, let's start out with a review of the basic elements of forms. Probably the most common form tag and the one that you'll use the most is the input tag. That's the dominant tag in this form. That's for the first name, last name, and zip code elements of this form. So let's now move on to the next movie and let me introduce you to form input fields.